Hello and welcome to a very sunny but quite blustery Portugal. I'm here with a bit of R&R, as they say, and just thought I'd catch up a little bit about the state of the records. The Lookout album, of course, we've got our first of the 3 albums on pre-sale. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown, sort of bit of an inside information about some of the songs on the album. So I think the first track I want to talk about, which is probably the most significant, maybe of the rock songs on the album. I mean, like we know, I've told you rather, there are 20 songs going on this collection of records. There will be 6 on the very first mini album, and yeah, it's a mixture, quite a mixture of styles. And I think when I sort of first started writing this record, like I've explained before, there was no holds barred at all. You know, I wanted to sort of explore my influences across the board, you know. So when me and Dave were working on ideas and I was presenting stuff to Dave Kemp, obviously he was sort of commenting, oh, that, you know, that could be this, that could be that, and all the rest of it. And so, you know, the discussions were very much how we could then develop those pieces of music, the songs, into something that was coherent across the board. But I think one thing I've realised over the years, that when you make records and you write music, is that there is a connection always there. You can often make the mistake of sort of thinking, well, that track's too different, or, you know, that one is you know, the fans won't like it or whatever. But I've learned that the best thing to do is not to even second guess any of that stuff, because it's always going to be my voice singing the songs. It's always going to be the same people playing the music, and, you know, in the same production. So I think with this record, there is a slight difference, in as much as that, because of some of the sort of directions I've taken with some of the songs, there is, I think, perhaps a wider breadth of styling going on here. But really, now I'm in the midst of the production. I mean, just to let you know, just prior to coming away, I was sort of, I think, halfway through the vocals and re-overdubbing stuff and edits and things like that, so it was really starting to shape up. And one thing I was starting to realise is that actually it is becoming, it morphs, you know, it changes. That's the great thing about making records, is that, especially with this kind of album, where, like I say, there was no direct trail. It was like, okay, let's see what happens. It's now morphed into something far more, I think, reminiscent of my past, perhaps some stuff from way back in the past, actually, but also, I think, with a fresh take on it all. And I do think there is going to be some surprises here for you all. So anyway, but the very first song I want to talk about, you to get back to the point, is a song called Alone With You. Now, it probably represents one of the clearest rock songs on the record. And from the moment I kind of came up with the riff, which was essentially based on me channeling those great songs from bands like the Kinks, the Animals, the Who, early Who, and things like that. Because I love that era, that what we will probably call the first Brit-pop period in lots of ways. And my dad's record collection contained a lot of those bands, and so it always was something that was around me when I was a kid, and made a big impression. And I think also, you know, the odd thing is, as I sort of grew up and became, you know, a teenager, and was getting into rock and roll and playing with Bruce and Jim and Mark Plunkett and all that, and in the Little Angels, you know, we were covering bands like the Van Halen occasionally. Like I've said before, we weren't very good at covers, but when we did things like You Really Got Me, which is, of course, is a Kinks song, you know, Ray Davies at his very best. And so I think it's always kind of been there. I love that simplicity. I love the very honest approach and the kind of almost garagey rock. I suppose it is a very early version of garage rock. So this particular song is essentially, I think, focusing that kind of idea. It sounds quite old-fashioned in one sense, but I also think it seems a little like it's kind of quite cutting edge as well, strangely. One of the comments that Dave said to me when I sent him the latest edit was, this sounds like a really fresh new band, you know, and I sincerely hope it does. But anyway, but again, just to reiterate about the concept of this record, it is based on essentially the last few years of my life, and I kind of waking up to my mental health issues, which I've been discussing, and trying to overcome them and find ways of holding that conversation with everyone. and being as honest as I possibly can about the reasons why and the situations, and to try and give some answers to that, a little my own personal answers to how you can sort of navigate your way through difficult scenarios. Especially, I find it especially difficult being a man in his 50s, having spent a long time sort of almost unknowingly dealing with it, trying to put the problems to the past and to the back of my mind rather, and leave them in the past. But really, that's not the way to do it. You have to face them head on, and you have to get help, and I did, and so these songs are definitely a reaction to that. And I've said a couple of times in the past few months or so that this record really is a record of recovery and a warning. That's why I've called the album Look Out, and it's not a warning in a kind of, a kind of violent way or a kind of like pessimistic fashion. It's just saying, take care of yourself, look out for what's going on, be aware of who you are, love yourself, find the mechanisms to use your powers and your intuition and your natural instincts to really, make sure that you're making the right decisions and you're doing the right thing for yourself as well as other people, because I think that's half the problem, is we do get embroiled a lot as we're growing up in sort of, well, I've certainly felt it, finding solutions for other people's and kind of leaving your own sort of health aside, So really, one of the main key things I sort of thought about all this is that it's about relationships. Your whole life is about the good and the bad relationships that you build. And for me, I sort of realised that in recent years, that because I've spent so much time away from home, I think a lot of my anxieties come from that. Because actually, really, in reality, I'm a family man. We've got 3 children, grown up now, of course. But the anxieties of going away and trying to sort of maintain a career as a musician whilst on the road, and missing home and all those sorts of things, and realising that, really the people I want to be with are, in some cases, and sometimes thousands of miles away, it was quite tough, So it's a kind of realisation about the people that matter the most to you. And so this particular song centres on my relationship with my wife, Ket, and how I'm at my most comforted and my most comfortable when I am alone with her and we are together. And even though it might not always be great, and sometimes I make dreadful mistakes, because it's always usually me, say daft things, behave incorrectly, etc., I still feel safe in that relationship, and feel very I feel honoured and lucky to have found someone that can give me that sort of sense of freedom, that I can be exactly who I need to be, even if it might not be great sometimes, So it examines that, but it's quite a fast tune. I think it's quite sort of dynamic. It's not at all hawkish. It's got, I think, a lot of energy about it, and I think that's what it is. It kind of combines the best elements of myself, which are the kind of positive, uplifting energies, along with the self-effacement, and also a pure recognition of what is important, and acknowledgement of the people that are important, specifically my wife. So I think all of these things combined, it's a spirited song, and I think it's a great start. I think it probably will be, we haven't quite decided yet, but I think it may well be the very first single we release, because I think it sets the album up really nicely, and it gives some energy to the possible, what's coming possibly next and all the rest of it. So yeah, so that track's called Alone With You, and as soon as I can get you some of the music for you guys to hear, you'll be hearing it. Okay, more soon. Thanks a lot.